Start. Okay. All right, fellas. Welcome to my lair. All right. This is Fire Instructor 2, Skill 2-6, and I'm going to be giving you guys a lesson on fire blankets. So, how long have you guys been in the fire service?
12 months.
12 months?
2 years.
2 years? Okay, cool. Have you ever heard of fire blankets?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Have you ever used one?
No, sir.
Do you know how to use one?
I do not.
No? Okay. Well,
Heard of them? Seen videos.
today I'm going to tell you a little bit about fire blankets. We'll learn a few things, and we'll practice on a mock fire blanket. And that way when we go out to the training field later on this week, we'll have some experience and we can know how to do it properly. Here's a little handout of all the slides that I've got for you guys. You can follow along right here. And I've also got some notes with some information. This is kind of what I'll be talking on throughout the lecture. Okay, so I got this nice learning environment for you guys. Nice lighting, everyone comfortable with the temperature, the ambiance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Who's ready to learn? All right, you guys are engaged. I like it. All right, so fire blankets. So our objective here with these blankets is we want to extinguish the fire using the blankets. Seems pretty simple. I mean, that's what we do. We put out fires, right? Typically use what?
Water.
Water. What else can we use?
Fire extinguisher.
Fire extinguisher.
Water cannon.
Sure. Foam. Yeah, all that stuff. So we're going to put out the fire using the blanket. So the motivation to use these fire blankets is we won't use any water. You know, water is a precious resource, especially during summertime. We know how the citizens like to complain about us using water. So guess what? No more water. All right? Minimal manpower. We don't need a ton of people. We literally just take this blanket, put it over the fire. And the cleanup's pretty minimal as well.
Okay.
All right? So what are fire blankets, you might be asking? Put my notes right here. So they're primarily used to help extinguish fires, small fires in their incipient stage. So they're most effective in like a kitchen or a small vehicle. So let me skip forward a little bit here. Does anybody know what this is? Yes, sir, Luke.
Captain Tom, that is the fire tetrahedron.
That is the fire tetrahedron. And Mr. Spontes, can you explain how the fire tetrahedron works?
Sure. So, oxygen, heat, fuel, that's what makes fire. You take away one, no fire.
Correct. So what you're saying is you need all three of these to sustain a fire.
Correct.
So if you take away the heat, fire goes out.
Correct.
It's kind of what water does. It absorbs the heat. Take away the fuel, fire goes out, right? You know, all fuel burns away, fire will go out. If you take away oxygen, it can't sustain combustion, the fire will go out, right? So, back to how they work. We're going to take this blanket and we're going to drape it over the fire, and it's going to remove the oxygen component from the fire, thus allowing the fire to go out. So how did it work? They're composed of a fire-resistant sheet that we directly place over the fire. Different types of blankets have different types of materials, but most of them are made pretty similarly. It's usually a specially woven fiberglass with some sort of fire retardant coating. This will completely cut off the oxygen supply, therefore smothering the fire. Yes, sir.
In regards to how do they work, are they very heavy? Does it take a lot of people to deploy this?
So they've been around for quite some time, but recently as technology advances, they've made them more light and user friendly. But no, that was one of our benefits, was that it doesn't take many people to deploy. It depends on the size of your blanket and the area you're trying to cover. So they come in all different shapes and sizes. You can actually get some real small ones for civilian use. You know, they put them in their kitchen. If they have a grease fire on the stove, they can throw them over there. But we also have larger ones that y'all will be practicing with later on this week that can go over larger vehicles. Okay?
How much heat can they withstand?
It depends on the manufacturer. I'm not sure off the top of my head. I do have a good video in here, and it actually uses a thermal imaging camera, and it shows you the heat that it's absorbing. I believe it was, in this particular video, it was upwards of 800 degrees that it was easily absorbing. And so different types of blankets are rated for different types of use and different quantity of use. Some of the fire blankets around you can reuse them up to 20 times. Other ones are just single use.
Oh.
Okay, so tetrahedron, let's go back. Why would you use them? We already talked about this. You extinguish the fire with them. It's just another tool in our toolbox. You know, like I said, we're conserving water and we're minimizing the cleanup. When would you use them? So you could use them whenever it's practical to, right? I mean, there's a million different ways to put out a fire. How come sometimes we use water, sometimes we use a water can, sometimes we use an extinguisher, sometimes we just step on it, sometimes we throw it out the window, whatever. You know, so whatever you'd find it appropriate. I think once we start using them, we'll see how easy it is to actually use these, and hopefully we start using them going forward. All right. All right. So let's go into some of the pros and cons here. Most of the time, like your extinguishers, you have to get them checked and serviced every so often. Most of these don't have an expiration date, so we can store them on a truck, and we don't really have to maintain them. Now there is a shelf life on them, but chances are we'll use them well before their shelf life. Like I said, many newer blankets, they have a lifespan of 20 plus uses if it's maintained properly, and we always need to make sure that we follow the manufacturer's recommendation when it comes to maintenance and retiring these blankets. Can be used on any type of fire as long as it completely covers the area. So like we talked about with the tetrahedron, as long as we're eliminating oxygen, the fire will go out. And that's the concept here. There's no mess. That's a big benefit. You spray an extinguisher, someone's kitchen, now they have to deal with cleanup. Same deal with foam. No mess. And it can help reduce the overall damage. So example, like going to someone's house, they got something on the stove, you drape a little blanket over there instead of using an extinguisher or water can or spraying water in there. It's less to clean up. We're not damaging their kitchen. Maybe they have wood floors. It's just reducing the damage overall. So the major drawback of this is you're limited to the size of the blanket. So although you can put out all fires, if you have a small fire blanket and your fire is big and you can't cover it completely, you're not going to be able to smother the fire out because it's still going to be able to get oxygen. So you're limited to the size of your blanket. They can also be abrasive, kind of rough. So if we're not wearing a proper PPE, it could cut us, which is something else to think of when we're using them inside someone's home. Just be mindful of that they can cause damage if we don't use them properly. And probably the biggest drawback is that you have to be close to the fire. Like some of these extinguishers, we can hit it from a distance. The fire blanket, we actually put it on top of the fire, so you do have to walk up to the fire. So that's why when we do this in the field, we'll have full PPE, SCBA as well. Okay. So how to apply the fire blankets? How do you think we would apply the fire blanket?
Depending on the size of the fire, you select the size of the blanket you want to use.
Yeah, that's perfect.
So it could be one person deploying or multiple firefighters deploying a blanket.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. You ever fold a towel by yourself? It's really easy. California King, or a salvage cover, for example. It's a lot easier to fold a salvage cover with multiple people.
Right.
Also deploying it. Same concept. Exactly. Technique. Any ideas on technique?
No, I would assume like if you're gonna unfold like a blanket or something, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll go over some of that, but the main thing is you want to put the blanket over the fire.
Right.
The technique, if you're just throwing it and you don't cover the fire, it's no good. All right. Make sure the entire fire is covered by the blanket, and you want to tuck in all edges if possible to ensure that there's no flow path getting there. The safety consideration is, like I mentioned earlier, PPE. You have to get really close to this fire. So, let's see if we can get this to load. This is a video of the Bridge Hill Car Fire Blanket. This is a particular brand. Okay? It's a European manufacturer. Not sure if y'all can catch this here. Check. So that's the fire. That's a car on fire that they're simulating. see how they're using a 2-man crew to deploy the blanket over the car that's on fire? Now on the left here, it's showing you a thermal image, and this is real time. This is at 750 degrees. You can see here how it limits the amount of smoke. That's just steam that's coming off of there. You see how they tucked in all around the edges to secure it to make sure that there's no oxygen flow getting there to the car. So this is a minute and 20 seconds in. It's going down to 125 degrees after 8 minutes and 30 seconds. Okay? 20 minutes after having the fire blanket on there, we've decreased to under 100 degrees. So it's suitable for all, their particular brand is suitable for all vehicles. Theirs is reusable up to 30 car fires. I mean, how often do we make 30 car fires? By the time we use that 30 times, we'll have the latest, newest technology. So it's one of the major benefits of it. Okay, got it. Great. I love to see it, guys. All right, what you got?
All right, so you say that some of these blankets, they can be reused 30 times, 20 times, depending on the manufacturer. But you also mentioned that there are some that it's a one-time use, right?
Correct.
So for a department, how much is that going to cost, right? So I mean,
that's going to be something that's discussed at the chief officer level with administration. You know, we need to crawl, walk, run. We need to learn how to use the fire blankets. Once we start using them, we can give feedback and we can say which ones are better, and they can analyze the data and come up with the most cost-effective solution for our department. In my opinion, a one-time purchase of a 20, 30 use fire blanket that you can use on all car fires. I mean, some car fires, we have areas where we don't have hydrants. And think about the electric vehicles that they have nowadays, like the Teslas. You know, the amount of water required to put this out. We drape a fire blanket over there, 20 minutes later, we're good to go. You know, it's just, and a cost, I know you mentioned cost, but they might actually be a larger investment initially, but it can save us money in the long run in situations like that. Okay.
I think one of the things I noticed, and having been on a car fire, you have captain, pumper, driver operator, firefighter, all approaching with their own specific job to extinguish the car fire. It looked like in donning this blanket, it was just a couple of firefighters, and then in doffing it was just one firefighter walking the chute away from the fire.
Yeah.
Where normally when we're cleaning up after a car fire, you're reflanking the hoses, you're draining them, you're rolling up your contaminated hoses. It looks like there's way fewer hands on deck to move that blanket off of.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree, and that's one of the first points I mentioned here is just the manpower that it requires. I mean,
So much.
you could in a sense put it on the car by yourself. It's not gonna be as effective and as easy, but you could do it. And you're absolutely right. The cleanup, the manpower required to do it. So let's do this. I have a little car. It's gonna be a mini car, and I have a fire blanket. So just so that we're on the same page when we go out to the field later on this week, we'll kind of walk through a few things and just make sure that we cover the main points. Now it's gonna be different using the actual fire blanket on a real prop, but if we understand how it's supposed to go, we'll easily be able to adapt to the real thing. All right, so I have right here our fire blanket, top of the line. Right here we have a Tesla. Put it in the middle of the room. Yeah, it's on fire, I know. It's putting off some fumes. Alright, so I just want to I want to see you guys how you watch the video. You two are the firefighters. You took this off the truck. How would y'all do it?
We're approaching from a safe space.
Yes, you're gonna approach from upwind.
Upwind and uphill.
Yep, upwind, uphill.
Car's fully involved.
Car's fully involved. Yep.
And it's a small SUV that we can reach
Yeah.
above.
Mhm.
Okay. So we'll flank the blanket out. If it's a rectangle, I would say we go rectangular with the shape of the car.
And remember what they did too. They had it all kind of laid out, and they kind of just drug it over here. Let me show you real quick a little technique. See how it's dragging behind him? Looks a little like it's got a little weight to it. And drag it over.
Okay. Come over. Over. And then
Okay, now that it's over,
you gotta tuck it in.
yeah, tuck it in. Yeah, you notice a lot they use their feet to kind of keep good balance here. And what you're doing here is you're eliminating the oxygen that gets to it. And after about 20 minutes or so, they removed it pretty much the same way. They just dragged it and walked that way with it. Perfect. Y'all want to give it one more repetition?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Much better. Much better. That is fantastic. Y'all are my heroes.
That's what we do.
Do you guys have any questions on this lesson?
Is there, so the weight of the blanket itself prevents the flow path? We don't have to add anything else to the blanket?
No,
to
I mean,
secure it?
that's a good question. I'll try and find an answer for you. I mean, if you're trying to do this in hurricane force winds, I could see how maybe it could try and find it a little bit at the bottom, but they're relatively heavy because of the material they're made of. So once, have you ever used a weighted blanket to sleep with?
Mhm.
Kind of the same thing. You know, you take a sheet, you put it outside on a windy day, it's gonna flop all over the place. Weighted blanket's not going anywhere. So I'd compare it to that.
Okay.
Okay. You guys good? Any other questions?
No.
Awesome. Thank you guys for attending. I'll log y'all down for 15 minutes of training. And see y'all at the field later.
Alright, sounds good.
Yes, sir.